Good morning. We're learning at Chutz Refuah Shlema Feilan Chaya Baserach. We're on the bottom of Daf Yud Amud Beis. The last line. Let's come from the Mishnah. Comments. We said in the Mishnah. So I'm just going to remind you of how a mincha works. A mincha you have let's say there's typical mincha. You have isaron of silas and isaron of flour, and you separate that. The person is mafresh, and he also has to bring shemen, which is a loig of shemen, and he has to bring a kaimitz of levina. He has to put on top of the silas. He mixes in the shemen. He puts the levina on top of it. And then when he goes to do the kmitza, which is very interesting, the Gemara doesn't talk about it here, but they explain that when he does the kmitza cannot include any, like we see in this Gemara. This Mishnah says he can't include in the kmitza any levina. He has the kmitza of just this flour. So what they do is they remove the levina while he does the kmitza, and then afterwards he takes the levina separately. But this kayan did not do that. So when he took the kmitza of the silas, there was a little bit of the tzura, a pebble, or a little bit of salt, or a little bit of levina in his handful of silas. It's puzzle because you're missing. You have to have a full kaimitz. You have to have a full fistful, and this has some foreign object in it. What do I need all three of these examples of foreign objects that decrease the amount? If you just say a pebble mishum dlav basakravi, the pebble has no place in the carbon in the mincha at all. So that's why it's possible. Aval melach the basakravi, since before you burn the kaimitz, you add salt to it, right? Well, the reason why we put salt on our bread is zeichet to what they did in the Beis Hamikdash. Whenever they would burn something on mizbech, they would add salt to it. So they would also add salt to this kaimitz before it got burned. So emet is kasher. Maybe melach, since it's going to go into the kaimitz in the end anyway, it will not be considered that to make the kaimitz deficient when he has some salt in it at that point. And so the Gemara says no. So that's what the Mishnah is telling you, that no, you add the salt afterwards, but at the time of the kmitz, it has to be a full fistful of flour. Vitana melach, maybe if you said salt, like ikva bahadi mincha meikara, it's not part of the mincha at the beginning. Aval levina, the ikva bahadi mincha meikara, you have to have a kaimitz of levina that's separated, that's hukdash for the carbon from the beginning. Ema discussion, maybe that will not detract from the sale. Let's come ashmon that any of these foreign objects will pass al the mincha. Zok the Mishnah. The Mishnah continued. Neisha amru hakaimitz achasar hayaser pasal. The kaimitz that is deficient, like we just said, that it has some foreign object in it that makes it smaller. Ay hayaser, or that is added to it, is pasal. Mayum richasav hayaser. The Gemara asks, why are we saying that if you have some foreign object in it, it's possible because it's missing? Typically, mishum chatzitza, let's say a foreign object is chaitzitz, the kayan has to be holding the kaimitz in his hand, and this is going to be either going to be a chatzitza, it's going to be an interposition between his hand and the flour, or if it's the middle of the flour, it's dividing one part of the flour from the other. It's chatzitza from the flour to itself. Amr Yimya minatzad. Yimya says we're talking about where one of these things, the pebble or the salt or the levina was not in between the flour in his hand or in middle of the silas, but it's at the edge. So it's not in between. It's when he holds it, let's say at the sides where the flour is open to the air, that's where it's stuck in. So it's not interfering. So I just want to point out, before we start this, if you look at the next Mishnah, just a little bit further down on the same, the Mishnah describes how he does the kmitza. He sticks out his fingers over his palm, and that's how he grabs the flour. So there are there are mefarshim on the side that say that was really supposed to be before the part of the Gemara that we're about to see. The Gemara is about to explain how you do a kmitza. They think that this line of the Mishnah was really before the Gemara over here, and the Gemara is explaining that line in the Mishnah. So Zok Gemara, Ketzad Kaimson, how do you do a kmitza? Amalek de Kamsi Inchi. He said about Rava said you do it the way people grab a fistful. Eisve zu zeres. So it sounds like Kedekamsi means a full fistful. He grabs with his hand a full fistful of silas. Back to Gemara. Zu zeres. This is the pinky. Zu kmitza. The next finger is called the kaimitz. Zeres. Each one of these fingers has a different function. So Rashi says that the nafkamina of the zeres of the pinky is to tell you the midah of the chayshin, that it was a zeres wide, and kmitza, the next finger, the fourth finger is called the kmitza because that's when the kmitza starts from. So that's the kasha. We had said that the kamsa ichi meaning a whole hand, and now we're saying the fourth finger is called the kaimitz because that's where you start the kmitza from. You only do kmitza with that starting from that finger, not including the pinky. Zu amma, the middle finger is called the amma because that's you measure an amma from a person's tip of his finger to his elbow. Zu etzba, and the next finger, the pointer finger is called the etzva that you do for the tefillas of the dam. And zu goidel, and the goidel is the thumb which is used for the mitzvah. So, but in any case, we see from this brisa that kmitza starts from the fourth finger, not the whole hand. So when we say kedekamsi inchi, it means that you use the pinky when you do kmitza to smooth out the edges of the kaimitz. It means you do it with the middle three fingers and use your thumb and you kind of use the thumb and his pinky to smooth out the edges. It's supposed to be 3 fingers worth. So even though they're included, they're used, but they're not part of what holds the flour. So how does he do it? Amrav Zutra Bartovia Amrav Rav Chayfa Sholosh Etzba'osav Ad Shemagia Al Pas Yodai V'Kaimitz. He puts his 3 fingers until they reach his palm, and then he puts it into the flour. Tanya Nami Hachi V'Loi Kumtza, a full kaimitz. Yachol Mebaritz, maybe that means heaped, added onto the side. Tamaloi B'Kumtza. The pasuk says, in its kaimitz, not anymore. If it says b'kumtzoi, maybe that means b'roshe etzba'osav. And Rashi says, what does it mean, b'roshe etzba'osav? It doesn't mean like we said before. It means that his fingers don't have to reach his palm. Talmud loima maloi kumtzoi. That has to be a full hand. Haketzad, and he's kaimitz. What does he do? B'machvas or b'machashes? We've been talking about doing a kmitza with flour, but if you remember from the beginning of the Masechta, we talked about some minchas are made from thin machvas, is a thin baked like matzah, and a machashes is a thicker, a baked mincha. So how are you doing it with those? Those are pieces. So what we say is you break it up into pieces and you use those broken pieces to do the kmitza. So how are you going to do that? How are you going to do a kmitza on that? You're going to also have to smooth it out with the thumb and the pinky. This is a very difficult avodah to do because you have these pieces of fried wafer that you have to smooth it out, that it comes out exactly even, right? You can't have pieces missing. You can't pull out a whole piece and leave it that it's mechoser, and you can't have it sticking out because then it's mebayritz, then it's sticking out. It's extra. It has to be perfectly smooth, a smooth handful without anything sticking out, even though these are chunky pieces of baked mincha. So the Gemara says this is the difficult avoida in the mikdash. In fact, the marzu v'sulai, is this the most difficult? Avoida v'ika malika. What about the malika, which is also difficult? The Kayan takes the bird with his hand, and he has to hold like the wings with his fingers and then break the neck with his thumb. It's very difficult physically to do. Va'ika chafina, there's also the chafina of the Kayan Gadol, which is the handfuls of bazi, he has to take these 2 spoonfuls of levina at the same time that he's holding a kli. He has a handful of levina, his 2 handfuls, and he's holding the kli in between his hands, and he has to flip it over without losing anything. So doesn't mean this is the most difficult avodah. It's this kmitza is one of the difficult avodas. It's not necessarily the most difficult or the only difficult one. Amar Pap, pshitali maloi kumtzai kedekamtzi inshi. That maloi kumtzai means the way a person is kametz. Boyer Papa kametz b'rosh v'ois. It means like not this is not to be chaylik on what we said before. He means to say that he puts the sides of his fingers. Rashi says he puts his hand into the flour, and the flour goes in while his hand is already closed. That's he forces it in. What happens if he takes his fingers and he scoops out the flour and puts it into his hand? What about if what is minat stadin? He puts the back of his hand on the flour, and he puts his hand in. He pushes his hand in like this until the flour comes in from the sides. How about if he puts his hand like this, which is the way I would have thought you do it, but he puts his hands like this. Where is it? I'm sorry. So Matal Milas, he goes like this.
If he goes like this,
he sticks his he goes like this.
scoops, basically.
Right. What he's supposed to do is go like this. Go in like this and force it in from the bottom. But instead, one thing is he went like this. This one he's going like this. I'm sorry. Matal Mali is going like this. Before the other one was he went like this. That's minat stadin, so it pushes in from the sides. All these different variations over what he was supposed to do. So Gemara Teku. These are all. It's not clear whether he's yaitza. Amra Papa Pshitali Malay Chafnov. We're talking about the chafina that you do on Yom Kippur, where you take the chafina, the handful of ketairis. Kedachafni inshi, which Rashi says, again, that he puts the side of his hand to get it. Boira Papa chafam beroishe etzba'osav. Again, if he did it with that he put his fingers in and scooped it out. Mao, minat stadin mao, again, if he put the back of his hand in and it came in on the sides. Chafam bezu ubezu. This is with 2 hands. There's 2 chafinas for the Kohen Gadol. He took 2 hands and then he put them together. The karvan zu eitzel zu. Is that going to be yaitza? Mao, teku. Again, it's a teku. Boira papa. Davke lekaimitz bedafne demanamai. If now we're talking about after he took the kaimitz, then he puts it into a kli. What if instead of putting it on the bottom of the kli, he slapped it on to the sides of the kli? Taich kli be'ina and va'ikadu, you say, since it's in the kli, he was yaitza. Idilma hanacha b'toicha be'ina maleka. It's supposed to be placed on the bottom of the kli, and it never made it to the bottom. It's on the sides. Take boy mar baravashi. Hafche lemana v'davke lekaimitz ba'arisa demana. You have sometimes a kli, sometimes there's a base of the kli, and if you turn it over, that base also has a receptacle that you could put things in, right? Imagine you have a stand So that stand, if you turn it over, is also capable of holding something. In the end, it's inside the kli. It's on the bottom side of the kli, but it's within the confines of the kli. So maybe it would be good. You have to do it in the proper way when the kli is standing on its right side up. The leka, and that's missing. Take again, it's a take. Zot the mission. Says he sticks out his fingers over his palm and he sticks his hand into the flour. It's like we said, this is probably supposed to be before the Gemara that we just said that went into the details of how you do a kmitza. Riba Shamna, the Mishnah continues, Riba Shamna Chasa Shamna, if he added to the shemen or he's missing some of the shemen, normally you have a loik shemen that you bring with your isaron of the mincha, or chiser levaina, or if the levaina is missing psula, it's possible. Hechidami riba shamna. What does it mean when it says that he added to the shemen? Amar Eliezer going to hefresh shnei lugin, where he was mafresh, instead of doing one lug, he added a second lug. That means he was supposed to do one lug of shemen with his mincha, and he added a whole second lug, which itself could have been, at this point the Gemara understands it to mean it could have been a valid second lug shemen. Why does it have to say specifically that he added to the shemen by having been makdish an extra lug? Why can it be he just took some regular vegetable oil from his pantry, or he took shemen from a different carbon? Why are we saying that the psul of adding means only if it was a valid part of this mincha? And if you'll say no, it's like what we often see in kachim, that in order for something to passel, it has to be valid itself. If itself is a valid part of the mincha, so that has the koyach to passel. But something from the outside, we just ignore it. It's irrelevant. And so shemen dechulin, a regular oil, or shemen of a different carbon, of a different mincha, that has nothing to do with this, would not passel maskeflo or zutra bartovia alameyata. Minchas chayta, the pasuk by shemen hechi mishkachas. The pasuk says that you can't add any shemen. A minchas chayta does not have shemen at all. And we say if you add shemen to it, it passes. How are you going to passel it? If it's talking about the shemen of that mincha halesla, there is no shemen. There's no valid shemen on a minchas chayta. So that you can't say it's talking about we put a loig shemen from that mincha. There's no shemen at all. Either chulin or the chaverta, and if it's stam shemen that wasn't part of the minchas chayta, or if it was from a different carbon, a different mincha that did have shemen, we had just said that we disregard such shemen. It has to be only shemen of the carbon, and we know that a minchas chayta does become possible by shemen. So it must be that it must be of the chaverta or of chulin. So you see that the chaverta of chulin is possible. So why did our mission? Why did Rebbe Eliezer say, or Rebbe Elazar say, it's talking about where he was mafresh an extra loig of this mincha. So Rebbe Elazar loimi bayakam. You take away the vav. Rebbe Elazar loimi bayakam. Rebbe Elazar wasn't saying that it's only going to be passel if you bring an extra loig. Loimi bay the chulin the chaverta the pasel. I might say it's not just that if he brings an outside shemen or from a shemen of a different mincha that it's possible. So one might think that if you bring a sect where he separated two lugin and then he picked one of them and he added both of them, maybe it's not going to passel, since either one of them technically could have been the loig for this carbon. Kamash Malon, so that's what he's coming to tell you, that even in the case we did two loigin and he added the loig that was already hokdash for this mincha, it's still going to be possible. How does Rebbe Elazar Taka know this, that that's going to be possible? Amarava masnisan kashisa. Rebbe Elazar Amarava masnisan kashisa, because he knew it because of our Mishnah. Ma'ya detana riba shamna. What does it say that he added on to its oil? Listen, riba lo shemen. Just say he added onto it oil, not its oil, the oil of the carbon, but oil stamazing. It's going to tell you, even if it was the oil of this particular carbon, it's going to pass. The Mishnah said, Chisa levoinasa. We said, interestingly enough, right, in the Mishnah, we said, if you added or detracted from the shemen, it's going to be possible. And by levaina, we said, if it's missing levaina, it's going to be possible. Tana Rabbah. So, as we're going to explain, this is a machlekes of Yehuda and Rav Shimon, and there's going to be later, we're going to say Rav Meir, who's going to be the Tan of our Mishnah. Tana Rabbah, we said in a brayso, so we'll leave this aside about how this works with the Mishnah. Tana Rabbah, chasar v'amda al kairat echad psula. If, as we're going to see, this is talking about after you did the kmitza, you did the proper kmitza, and then you added on a kaimitz of levaina, and now when you're coming to do the haktara, the whole levaina is missing except for one grain. A kairat is like a piece of levaina. It's possible. Al shnei karting share, but if you have 2 grains of the levaina, even though it's obviously much less than the full kaimitz, it's kosher. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda says you have to have at least 2 kairats, 2 pieces of levaina, in order to burn it on the mizbech. Rav Shimon Aimer al kairat echad shera pachas mikam psula. Shimon says no. All you have to have is 1. You don't have to have 2 pieces. Back to Marva Tanya, right? So that was Rav Shimon. Tanya. So some people have the lashon of Shimon Aimer. Rashi says it has to be talking about Rav Shimon. Kaimitz ulevaina shechasa kol shu pasul. It says a kaimitz and a levaina that's missing any part of it is pasul. That means that's much more than Rav Shimon had said that if you have 1 piece left, and now he's saying if anything is missing, it's pasul. So Gemara tani kairat levaina shechasa kol shu pasul. What he means to say, if that last piece is at all deficient, that's going to pasul it. Or you could say, this din that Rav Shimon said that you can have only 1 kairat left, and it's when you burn it, when you makter it, and it's still going to be kosher, that's talking about a levaina that goes together with the mincha. But there's also such a thing, we've seen that a person could bring just levaina, he could bring a matana on the mizbech of levaina. It comes on its own. So on that's what we said that a levaina haba b'fnei atzma that's going on its own. If it's missing any part of it, it's going to be possible. So now we're going to get to where we explain. Like I had really explained in the machlekes of Yehuda and Rav Shimon that they're talking about at the end when you're makdir the levaina, not when you're makdish. Now the Gemara is going to explain that. I'm Rabbi Yisrael Yosef. I'm Rabbi Yechon. There are 3 shittas on this topic. We just mentioned the Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Shimon. Now we're going to say the third. Rav Meir Savar kaimitz v'tchila v'kaimitz b'soif, that you have to have a full kaimitz when you start the avoda and when you do the kmitza, and a kaimitz b'soif when you makter it on the mizbech. So that is, and Rashi says he's the Tan of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah had said if anything is missing, it's going to chisa levaina, it's possible. That's Rav Meir who says if anything is missing at the time that you do that Torah, it's possible. Yehuda Savar kaimitz betchila, he agrees like everyone does that when you do the kmitza, there has to be a full kaimitz of levaina, ushnei kartem b'saif, and there has to be only 2 crumbs at the end. Rav Shimon Savar kaimitz betchila v'kairat echad b'saif. There's a machlekes that we brought in the brayso before. Rav Shimon says you only have to have 1 kairat at the end. Ushloshna mikra echad darsh. They all come from the same pasuk. As kol ha'vayna shal ha'mincha says all the vayna that was on the mincha. Rav Meir Savar adi isa l'vayna deikva b'hadi mincha meikara. Rav Meir darshans that it says it's kol ha'lavayna means all the vayna that was there when he first when he made the kmitza that was makva, that was kaiveya, that this kaimitz levina was part of the mincha, that has to be there at the end when you do the aktar. Yehuda Savar kol is telling you kol halavina means any. Vafilu chad kairit. Even if there's just 1 crumb, any kind of levina is also going to be good by the aktara. Therefore, he says it only has to be 1 piece. Es, es l'rabbeis koyda acher. And the Torah says, es, the es kol halavina. Es is a riboy. It comes to be marba. You don't need just one piece. You need two pieces. Rav Shimon es darish. Rav Shimon, like we said, only needs one kairat because he does not darshan the es. So that's their machlokes. Everyone agrees you need the full kaimitz of levina at the time of kmitza, and they argue about what you need at the end. Rameh says, like our Mishnah said, you need the entire kaimitz levina, and Reb Shimon says you need one kairat at the end, and Reb Yehuda says you need two. This is all only when you have a regular mincha that you bring levina along with it. If you have an independent where a person made a matana of levina by itself, everyone will agree on that. You have to have the full amount when you do the haktara, the same amount that you had at the beginning at the time of the kmitza. That's why it says asher ala mincha, that this din, these drushes that we have about how much you have to have at the time of haktara, that's only when it's going together with the mincha. But levina goes by itself, certainly has to have the full amount. The machlekes is with levina that goes together with the mincha, but levina that goes in the bazichin, like we said, we described the avodah of the lechem apanim, which is sort of a variation of a mincha, that they would bring the 12 loaves of bread on the shulchan, and they would put 2 spoons of levina, of a kaimitz of levina in each one, and they would take that out when they took away the lechem, and that was like similar to the kmitza of the lechem apanim. So divrei hakol, shnei kamsim b'tchila v'shnei kamsim b'sayf. On that, you're also going to have the din that you have to have the full shnei kamsim, just like a levina above v'fnei atzmai. So the Gemara pshita, the Gemara says pasha. We just said that there's a pasuk by mincha that they argue about whether kol means that you only have to have one kairat or 2 kairats, or you have to have the full amount. But there's no such pasuk by the lechem apanim. So why would I think you need anything less than the full amount? Pshita. Maybe since the lechem apanim is similar to a mincha, so it comes together with the lechem, just like the levina goes together with the silas of a mincha. The bazichin of levina on the lechem apanim goes together with lechem, and it will have the same rules. Kamash malam. Please go Rav Ami v'Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. Chad Amar Machloikas b'Levina haba min hamincha, aval Levina haba v'nei atzer v'akol kaim b'tchila v'kaimitz b'sayf. One says, like we've been saying, like we said earlier in the Gemara, that the whole Machloikas of how much you have to have, how much Levina has to be at the time of Aktara, is only a Levina that's going together with a mitzvah, as part of a mincha. But Levina that's coming on itself, everyone agrees you have to have a kaimitz by the Aktara. And one says, no, the machlekes, he disagrees, and he says, even a levina haba b'fnei atzmai, the Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Shimon are going to argue, they're going to say you need either 1 or 2 kairats to kasha. So he said, chisa levainasa psula. If the levina is mechusar at all, it's possible. So the Mara hayatir kshera. We said about the shemen that if you were mechusar or you added on, it's possible. But on the levina, we just said if it's mechusar, we didn't say anything about adding on, it's going to pass. V'atanya yatir psula. We have a brayza that says if you add on to the levina, it's possible. It's talking about that which we say that it's possible when Yamati, if you add on, is where he added on, where he was mafresh 2 kamatzim. If he separated, and this is essentially saying the same thing that we just said, that if he's mafresh 2 kamatzim, it's going to be possible. If he separated 2 kamatzim before the time of the kmitza, but before he actually did the kmitza, the extra one was lost. It was not hukva as part of the kmitza, and it's going to be kosher. Achar kmitza, but if he did the kmitza with 2 kaimitzes of a levina, hukva, it was already hukva, and therefore it's going to pass. The The same din by the lechem aponim. If it was mafresh 4 kamatim for the 2 bazichim, which is supposed to be 1 kaimitz for each one, so he had again double for each one. But Abdu Shnai Mehen Kaidim Silk, and he lost them before the Silk Bazichim, which is similar to the Kmitza of a Mincha. Loi Hukfu, it wasn't Kaveh, and therefore it's not possible. Achasil Bazichim Hukfu. It's going to be Hukfu, and therefore it's going to pass. Hasul Lomali. Why do we have to say pretty much the same din? It's the same din by the Lechem upon like we said by Mincha. Hainu Hach. Now the time even the Baru Kaimitz Idei, Ida. He gives man the parka command the parka dummy. We saw earlier there was a man the Amar who says the Gabi the removal of the Shnei Bezichin of Levina by the Lechem upon him, that there was a man the Amar who says as soon as the time comes to separate the Bazichin, the removal of the Bazichin is similar to the Kaimitz of a Mincha. It parallels the Kaimitz of a Mincha. But since these 2 Bazichin of Levina, which are essentially the kmitza, were always separated. You don't have to stick your palm in and take the kaimitz. They are levina as opposed to the bread, which is separate from it. So as soon as the time comes to separate it, it's as if it was already separated. If that was the case, when the Zaman came, even if you had not yet taken away the bazichin, if you had double the amount, it should be possible, even if you lost it afterwards. Kamash Malon, that no, but doesn't go by the time. He has to actually he has to have extra levina at the time that he removes the bazichin. It's not enough that the time came. We don't treat it as if there was an automatic separation of the bazichin. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll continue B'ez Hashem tomorrow.